Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined by Riley Fessler. Hello, Riley.
Hello, how are you?
Good. And Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
Fabulous. Thank you for asking.
Of course, we're all Canadians today. All happy to see Canada doing the right thing where we here in the United States have been unable to do so. And perhaps that's where we should start our conversation, Minna.
That's what I was going to say. Excellent foresight into what our first story was going to be today.
Yeah, they would never have any idea that an hour before each podcast you send me the story list. But go on.
We like to create an illusion of you just being able to get
just spontaneous conversation about, hey, let's talk about Canada today.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Canada today.
Mark
Tim
Carney.
Tim Hortons, Labatt's Brewery, hockey. See, I speak Canadian. Go on.
All things covered in this article. Mark Carney, a former central banker, led Canada's Liberal Party to a surprising electoral victory, capitalizing on Donald Trump's threats of tariffs and annexation, which derailed a previously dominant Conservative campaign. Carney's centrist policy shifts and reputation for economic competence helped neutralize Conservative attacks and win back voter confidence after Justin Trudeau stepped down amid party dissatisfaction. With a renewed mandate, Carney now faces an urgent task of negotiating with the Trump administration to avert a trade war and steer Canada towards greater economic independence.
Let's just close our eyes and have a little fantasy here, okay? Imagine the United States elected a Harvard-educated economist, former hockey player, who was the central bank governor of both Canada, and he was so good as the Canadian, he became the central bank governor of England, ran the Bank of England. And, he was offering clear policies in defiance of local and next-door neighbor fascism. And he engineered a 25-point or more shift in opinion polls in just a matter of a couple of months. You would think that, a country that was smart enough to do that in this fantasy, like if we were a country like that, might have other things going for it, like healthcare for everybody, lower priced pharmaceuticals, more sensible foreign policy, greater social safety net more broadly. It was a little bit more like an enlightened European country than, the United States. Unfortunately, that's not us, that's Canada. But good on you, Canada, for doing the right thing. And I think, let it be a message to Donald Trump and to MAGA. He attacked Canada. The person who pushed back did better. He attacked Mexico. The new president who pushed back boosted in the polls. He attacked China. China pushed back. China looks stronger. We look weaker. He attacked Harvard. Harvard pushed back. Now 400 or 500 universities have signed on alongside Harvard. There's a message here. Push back on Trump. You do better. Go along with Trump. You do poorly. How do we know? Well, to go back to the Canadian story, the pro-Trump MAGA-ish candidate, Pierre Poilievre, lost his own seat in this election. Given their system, he'll stay the head of the party, but his party will be in the minority after 3 months ago. It was an absolute shoo-in they were going to win. They threw in with Trump. Big mistake. Anyway, here we are, and on to the next thing. But thanks for starting us off with a little good news today, Minna. Let's see if Riley can keep it going.
Maybe. President Trump plans to ease the effects of his tariffs on U.S. automakers by reducing some import duties on foreign parts used in domestic vehicle manufacturing. While cars made abroad will still face tariffs, They will not be subjected to additional levies like those on steel and aluminum. The move is seen as an attempt to show flexibility in his trade policy amid backlash from the auto industry and concerns about economic disruption. Industry leaders, including GM's CEO, welcomed the decision, though concerns remain about potential impacts on prices and sales.
Well, look, that's better news than him adding to the tariffs or adding new tariffs. It's a further sign that his tariff plan is completely crazed and is falling apart all around his ears. There were a couple goals of these tariffs. One, make the world, fairer place for the U.S. to trade. Two, move jobs to the United States. Move manufacturing to the United States. The deal-by-deal approach they're doing isn't going to achieve any of that. None of their goals will be achieved. Last month, Peter Navarro, the president's demented trade advisor, said 90 deals in 90 days. But we're kind of 20 days into that, 0 deals. They're talking about, sort of fake, maybe kind of sort of, sub deals. Not happening. Gradually, they're going to cave on almost everything. They'll get a few small side deals. This thing will be seen as a big fiasco. Didn't have to be that way, by the way. The president started out, and I mean, let's give credit where it's due, saying, I want to attract investment to the United States. And I'm going to make it easier for investors to come to the United States. And even though he was going to waive some laws and things that, were sensible regulations to do it, this would have been a much more positive approach for Trump to take. Let him go out there and be the chief salesman of the U.S., attract foreign investment, attract foreign jobs, attract foreign workers, attract foreign students, make America stronger. All those things, which were, sort of bubbling up, those were things, Elon Musk, and they were all talking about that stuff. They went off in this other crazy direction. Maybe they'll go back. Okay, 2 not entirely insane stories. Next.
Chris Krebs, former head of the U.S. Cyber Defense Agency, publicly condemned the Trump administration's sweeping cuts of federal cybersecurity programs and called on the tech community to express outrage over the changes. Speaking at the RSA conference, Krebs warned that downsizing efforts, particularly those targeting election security, are endangering national security amid growing global cyber threats. His remarks met with strong applause come as other cyber leaders also voiced concern over Trump's restructuring moves and investigations targeting Krebs himself for affirming the illegitimacy of the 2020 election.
For affirming the legitimacy. Yeah, exactly. Well, look, you want to get applause? Stand up to Trump. Seems to be a theme here. At the funeral for the Pope, Zelensky walks in, applause. Trump walks in, no applause. Carney gets applause. Poilievre, no applause. Chris Krebs, as it happens, is 100% right. People in the technology space know that he's right. Trump's arguments to the contrary put the United States at risk. I'm glad that he's speaking out. I'm glad people are hearing it. And I'm glad the message is coming through that Trump policies don't work. There was a poll that came out yesterday, and it showed Trump's policies on immigration, Trump's policies on tariffs, Trump's policies on cutting corners with regard to the law. They're all hugely unpopular in America. 65% of Americans oppose those policies. Only 30%, I think 13% of Americans supported, Trump's idea that we should take over Canada. 20-ish% the Greenland idea. 30-ish% his idea of cutting corners on immigration. That's kind of, constant in American politics for the past 10 years. They're kind of like 25-30% of Americans who are just absolute shits and who will support anything Trump does. But the vast majority of Americans, The vast majority of Americans, 60, 65, 70% of Americans are super sensible. Super sensible. You know what they support? Healthcare for everybody. You know what they support? Education reform. You know what they support? Common sense gun reform. You know what they support? Taking care of the environment. You know what they support? Fairer taxes. You know what they oppose? These Trump policies. When you hear somebody going, oh, the Democrats are in trouble, bullshit. When you hear somebody saying the Democrats need to stand for something, bullshit. The things the Democrats stand for, like a strong economy, like a strong defense, like protecting our individual freedoms, like enforcing the law, not breaking it in the government, like, educating our people, like taking care of the sick and the elderly. That's what Democrats are for. That's what 70% of Americans are for. The last election was an aberration. The vast majority of Americans are already in the right place. It's time to recalibrate so our elections reflect the views of most Americans. That would happen, by the way, if most Americans actually voted. But the majority of Americans who could vote didn't. So up, off your ass, out of your chair, express your views, or your views are going to get overwhelmed by that shitty 25%. Riley, not that there are any of them in Ohio, Riley. None of them.
Nope. A massive blackout left tens of millions without power across Spain and Portugal for nearly 18 hours, halting transportation, disrupting communications, and shutting down businesses. By Tuesday morning, electricity had been fully restored, though officials remained uncertain about the exact cause of the outage. Preliminary findings pointed to two nearly simultaneous failures in southwestern Spain, possibly triggered by a high-voltage line interruption between France and Spain. While life gradually returned to normal, many residents remained shaken and confused by the rare and widespread disruption.
Yeah. We try to have commentary on every story. I don't have anything to say about that. That's the news. It's important news. We should report it. But it's one of those things. Something went wrong. People are fixing it. I'm glad they're fixing it. We had friends. David Sandelow, the host of one of our podcasts, was off there in the middle of all that. Glad it's getting resolved. What's our last story, Minna?
House Republicans have proposed a sweeping overhaul of the college financial aid and student loan system that would cut Pell Grant eligibility, raise loan repayment costs, and reduce regulation of for-profit colleges, all to save money and enable tax cuts. Critics warn the plan would disproportionately harm low-income and community college students while also overburdening a downsized education department ill-equipped to implement such drastic changes. The Republicans aim to pass the bill via budget reconciliation to bypass Senate Democrats. Legal and logistical hurdles could block its path forward.
The Republican Party is waging a war, not on just poor Americans, not just on Americans of color, although they bear the brunt of it, on all normal Americans, people who depend on government policies in order to support them, the kind of policies governments are supposed to provide, whether that's a functioning education system, or whether it's a functioning healthcare system, or a system that protects us from diseases, or care for people who are elderly, or care for veterans. Every vulnerable group is being attacked. Is it purely by virtue, as a result of malice? No, it's because they want to cut taxes for the rich, and they want to justify it by cutting services to everybody else. But it's not, waste, fraud, and abuse services. It's not the government paying, $1,000 for a toilet seat on an aircraft carrier. It's vital services that all of us depend on. And in this reconciliation process yesterday, they reduced the size of the cut to Medicaid that they were going for from $880 billion to just $600 billion. It's still going to lead to tens of thousands of deaths in the United States. Tens of thousands of deaths. One estimate, one person dying every 18 minutes needlessly because of this. Want to know another place apparently they're cutting? The Scientific Advisory Board for the National Cancer Institute. They're firing them all. Just like they're stopping cancer research. Just like they're stopping development of key vaccines or our ability to approve them. So, case by case by case, every single person you know is going to be negatively affected, whether it's a Social Security cut or a Medicare cut, Medicaid cut, or a VA cut, or a HHS cut, or an education cut, or a cut in our foreign aid, or other things that make the world a safer place, or cuts in environmental programs. Make a list. Talk to your friends. Every single person is going to be harmed by these policies, but only a small handful will benefit from the big tax cuts for billionaires and centimillionaires that are the purpose of this policy. It will benefit nobody that you know. It will harm everybody that you know. Well, that's it. It's a Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot of good podcasting coming up this week because that's what we do here, good podcasting. Go to the dsrnetwork.com for more information on what those podcasts are and sign up. Be a member. Be a mensch. Be a good person. Don't be one of that 25%. $70 a year, something like that. You can support us. It'll make a huge difference. We need the support. We are grateful for the support. And you get a bunch of benefits from it. Less ads, bonus content, which is going to increase now over the rest of this year. We've got plans for increasing the bonus content and all sorts of other good stuff. So please, this is the best time possible to become a DSR member. Until tomorrow, thank you, Riley. Thank you, Minna. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and bye-bye.